All right, it is 7:30. I will call this meeting of the Public Safety Committee to order. Okay, for roll call, we have everybody here except Supervisor Krebs, who is excused. Notice this meeting was posted by the County Clerk's Office in accordance with all applicable laws. And we will rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and silent prayer. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Our first item on the agenda is the consent agenda. So I would entertain a motion to approve that. Supervisor Milliken, and I saw Supervisor Thomas' hand for seconding. Any questions or comments on the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of approving, say aye. 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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. First discussion item is corrections officer staffing update.
Good morning.
Morning.
Captain Lehman here to provide a quick update on the staffing levels at the county jail here in Washington County. So just to get started, I felt it was important to touch on a couple of major changes that occurred over the past year that directly affected our staffing in the jail. So the first major change was a result of the AntiCrime Plan B. That's going to be discussed a little bit more in depth in the next topic, but I will touch base on that. So the Plan B of the anti-crime plan that added 3 correction officer positions to our staffing plan. So basically what that did is it took us from 62 officers to 65 officers, officer positions, I should say. It did not magically put 3 officers on my staff. So this change was important to note because at the time, back in February of 2023, we had 6 vacancies. So adding the 3 effectively added 3 more vacancies. So we were up to 9 vacancies as of early February of 2023. So historically, we all know that hiring and retaining quality candidates to work in the jail has been very challenging. During my tenure as captain, I'm going on 9 years now, we have never achieved any sustained period of time where we were fully staffed, fully trained. Yeah, you have to also remember that my officers all go through a 12-week field training period where they're not officially going towards any of our positions in the jail. So we have never really attained that 62 mark. So now there's 3 more added onto that. This challenge has only become more difficult over the past several years because the overall applicant pool for law enforcement, any position in law enforcement, has been drying up. It's very, very hard to find qualified candidates who want to work in the jail. So another issue that kind of goes along with this on the back side of things. So we're having some issues with bringing people in the door, but we're also having some people leaving. This issue actually goes back to the year 2000. So back in year 2000, we expanded the jail. We did our major renovation and expansion, and that expansion more than doubled our staff. So back then, we hired a lot of officers between the year 2000 and 2001. And surprisingly, back then, with that group of officers, our retention was fantastic, which is usually a really good thing. We retained a lot of those hires from those years, even up until today. So I say it's usually a good thing. What we're seeing now is when you retain people for 20 plus years, you have a large group that's looking at retiring. So that's kind of what we've seen this coming down the pipe for quite a while. But we were starting to prepare for that. So just to give you, put this in perspective a little bit, we currently have 17 staff members who were hired in the year 2000 or before. That means a quarter of our staff has over 20 years experience, between 20 and 30 plus years experience. And all of those are looking at retiring in the next handful of years, I would say. So this information, along with the extremely competitive job market for corrections, is what drove the second change that I wanted to touch on. And that was the market adjustments that were approved by the board and took effect in October of 2023. So that market adjustment raised our pay scale and our starting wage substantially. It's been 5 months since that market adjustment went into effect. So it's probably time to start evaluating it. And the best way to evaluate it is to look at our vacancies. So as I stated earlier, Plan B, prior to Plan B, we had 62 correction officers on the staffing plan. 6 of those 62 positions were vacant at the time. We added the 3 positions with Plan B. That took us to 9 total vacancies as of February 8th of 2020. From February 2023 to December of 2023, we lost a total of 6 officers. 3 of those were due to retirement and 3 to resignations. Also during that time, we hired 3 officers. So that increased our vacancies. So heading into 2024, we had 12 vacancies, which is not where we want to be at all. So now for the good news.
Yeah, I would like some good news
Yes.
here.
So 2024, so far in 2024, we have not lost anybody due to retirement or resignation. We do have some retirements that are being talked about in the upcoming year, but so far we have not lost anybody, and we have hired 7 so far this year. So which is substantially more than what we did all of last year. Those 7 hires, our 7th one is actually starting on April 1st. So with those 7 hires, that brings our vacancies down to 5. So that includes the 3 from the Plan B. We also currently have 4 additional applicants who are in various stages of the hiring process. One of those is actually a rehire who had been an officer for a number of years, relocated to another state and is now coming back. So I expect that that hire will probably go into effect end of April, beginning of May. And then the other 3 will continue to work through the process. So our 7 hires in the first 3 months of this year has far exceeded the total number of hires that we had in all of 2024. I would say that's a good indicator that that market adjustment is doing exactly what it needs to do. I'm not going to say that I'm being overwhelmed with quality candidates, but I've definitely seen an uptake in that area. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions.
So you mentioned the one we're looking at rehiring. It's still going to be more than a month before we can rehire him. Does it just take that long to work through the process?
She's relocating from out of state.
Okay.
So that's more on her timeline. She's got
Gotcha. Okay.
property to sell.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. Other questions? Comments?
Well, thank you for the update. I'm just curious too, the other 4 applicants, they state their why behind.
What was that?
Their why behind applying for Washington County? Specific, is there a theme or is it our increase in pay or?
It's
or just
the
Washington
increase in
County's
pay.
awesome, the best county in the
The
state?
increase in pay definitely brings attention. So
Okay.
the increase in pay brings attention. The way the job market is right now for corrections officers is everybody, every county in the state is hiring.
Yeah.
So anything that you can do to bring attention to yourself helps bring people in. We've had some that Only one of our 7 new hires from this year was what I would consider a lateral hire. He came from another county. He was originally from the area, got his first employment in a different jail, and wanted to move back to his home area. So that's why he came back over. It's one of our neighboring counties who is pretty competitive with our wages.
And can you refresh my mind if we're working with the schools or doing like a school type program? Like fire and EMS is looking into that with Slinger.
Yeah, so corrections programs at the tech school level are specifically corrections programs are very few and far between. Last I heard, Marine Park was changing theirs over to just criminal justice. So the problem that we're seeing is most of the candidates that are going to school for criminal justice are looking to get police jobs. And there are so many police jobs out there that they don't have to come through the jail to get that experience. So that's part of the problem. We've made some other changes. We've lowered our age. Our minimum age was lowered to 19. Not saying that we're going to be hiring a bunch of 19-year-olds, but we have seen some very mature, good quality 21-year-olds who would have been just fine at 20, 19 that we've hired in the past. So we opened that up. We no longer have the education requirement, so we're trying to tap into a little bit of a different job market. Back in 2000, we did not have that education requirement of having 60 college credits. And a lot of those hires from the year 2000, 2001 came in with no post-high school education and became good officers and stayed with us for, some are still working with us today. So,
okay.
What's the average length of time from when somebody applies to when they're hired, if they are hired?
It depends. Over the years, we've cut it down dramatically. A lot of things have fallen off. We don't do civil service for correction officers anymore. There's a lot of things that we've kind of streamlined and made more efficient. It's difficult to say because a lot is based off of the background. So depending, when we have people, we've actually had quite a few people from out of state that have been hired over the last few years and that were relocating to Wisconsin. And those backgrounds take longer just because of the logistics. So that's really the area that, although us as the sheriff's office has made great strides in our background, we used to handle it differently. Now we have one person who really handles the bulk of it, and he does a very good job at it.
Yeah. Okay. Other questions?
What do you need from us? What else can we do to help?
At this point, I'm not sure if there's anything specific. I mean, job market is still very competitive. So we made our move early, in October, which gave us a heads up on everybody, but every county is making adjustments. And I expect that to continue. So we just have to keep monitoring the job market, making sure that we're staying competitive. That's really the key.
Yep. All right.
All right, thank you.
I
Good
think,
luck to you.
yeah, I think we'll roll into the anti-crime plan B update. Then a sheriff? Yep.
Good morning, all.
Morning.
Morning. What I was asked to do is just kind of give you kind of a brief update on from the referendum request to the crime B, what we've done so far to implement that. I think part of your attachments, you had the Washington County AntiCrime Plan update. It was dated March 20th. And if you notice on there, there's two different columns. The column on the left is what the original crime plan referendum was. And on the right, the larger column is what has been done to date through a variety of different actions, both the resolution, county board action, the budget process. And we made some significant increases in our staffing, which is it's a testament to all of the county that made a lot of sacrifices to make what I'm going to talk about happen. But on the patrol side of things, the original request was for a patrol, 1 sergeant. What the crime plan B, what we're able to do, this is on the sworn side, the gun toting, arresting side of things, is we're able to add 2 full-time deputies. But in reality, what we also did is it really is 4, because we had a safety resource deputy position that did, and these are very, very important positions. He did presentations for security at businesses and school assessments, and he still does some of that. It's just not a full-time dedicated position. The other position was the DARE position, which I was very torn about doing. But what we really need to do is to get positions out on the road patrolling the streets. So we took those positions plus the 2 new positions and focused them directly on patrol. And we're able to increase our minimum staffing, at least on one of the shifts, to bring that up to a little more of a level that I was comfortable with. So in the sworn division, right as it stands right now, we are completely full staff. There's a couple of people that are in field training. We have one in the academy, so but the positions themselves are filled. I do think I have a resignation on my desk for a deputy that's going to be transferred to the state patrol. So we're going to be going down 1 probably very, very soon. But we're actually looking very, very good in the patrol operations. The next part was the crisis team that, if you don't remember, like we call them the crew, that's the combination of the clinical social worker and the deputy. The original referendum had three deputies and 3 clinical social workers. We're actually able to turn that into this year into 4 corresponder teams, the 3 from Crime Plan B, and then a federal funding grant that we're able to secure that goes into 2026, and that has been very, very effective. It's a program that I think we've talked about it before, but they're very, very busy, and I'm really impressed with. I'm not sure what the metrics can say about what it's doing, but I can tell you that it's really lit. It's raised the bar on the level of service that we're providing to the citizens that are in crisis, that are victims of violent crime. It's just been a very, very effective tool for us, and it'll increase. We're very, very new to it, but it's going to increase effectiveness. The one area that we didn't touch at all in Crime Plan B was the Detective Bureau, and I use that as kind of, it's major crimes and the drug units. We're managing there. We had asked for three detectives and 1 criminal analyst because of all the cell phones and all the technology that's occurred. But we're managing that. If there's one area that we probably need to address in the future, it's going to be either the major crimes or the drug enforcement area. We talked a little bit about the jail operations. So the original crime referendum was 6 corrections, 1 sergeant, 1 lieutenant, and then some money for some mental health. And as Captain Lehman stated, we have the 3 positions that are there. What I think and what we're going to be doing once we can get those positions staffed, I think the focus is going to be having additional manpower in the special management unit. That's kind of the most challenging inmates that we deal with, and that's probably the area that needs to have additional staff in. So I think that'll probably be the focus once we get those 3 positions in place. The one area that's we have it listed under the Crime Plan B, but it's really a different project, is the staffing for consolidated dispatch, and Captain Stacer will go into exactly what that staffing, how we're doing with that. But we have additional 10 staff. It's 9 communications officers and 1 supervisor. That really wasn't a part of the crime plan referendum or Plan B, but it's increasing our staffing by 10. So we thought it was important to include that in that area. Like I said, Captain Stacer will talk about the exact staffing of what we're doing with that right now. The emergency management, I believe that was for one of the cabinet positions. That kind of where that came from if you have questions about that, I think Aaron will be able to address that a little better than I. The administration, the records assistant that we have funded in the 2024-2025 budget. If you recall that we implemented body cams and we knew that the open records requests were going to exponentially increase, and they have. So that position's, we had a little bit of a struggle. It's actually vacant right now. We had somebody that did an internal transfer and they decided to go back to their original position. But we have an internal candidate that's in our front office right now that we're kind of test running to see if she likes it. We're going to do an internal transfer there. So technically, I guess we don't have it filled right now, but we're well in the process of doing it. And then the other part was the take home squad program that has been funded through a variety of different means. The CIP should be implemented fully in, I believe, in the 2025 budget. But we have several of our staff members. My personal rules is that you have to live in the county to have a take home squad. I didn't think it was right for Washington County taxpayers were paying gas money. If somebody decides to live in Dodge or Fond du Lac County, they can do that for the collective bargaining agreement. But just internally, my rules are that if you're having a take home squad, you have to live in Washington County. So with not every deputy is eligible for that. So that's kind of the 30,000 foot view of where we're at with the crime plan B. If you have any questions, myself or one of the captains can surely answer.
Okay, questions? Chairman Schleif.
I'm just curious, how many deputies do we have that live outside Washington County?
I believe the last time I counted was maybe a third in that neighborhood. So we have a total of 86 total sworn, and myself, about a third of them, I think, are the part of the county.
Other questions? All right, I think we're good to go on this. What?
No, thank you.
Yep, I think we're good to go on this item. Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Okay, our next item will be the radio grant process updates. And what we'll do is I think we'll have county executives speak on this and then we'll take a motion.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to touch on the anti-crime plan. If you look at those numbers, you can see that it looks, if you just look at the bottom line and the newspaper runs that as the headline, it looks like, we're within just over 4 positions. But as you can see, the priorities have shifted, as tends to be the case. As the sheriff alluded to, the consolidation of dispatch with Hartford and Germantown has really kind of moved the needle relative to where we were thinking back in November of 2022. So I just want to point that out. And the reason I want to point that out is later in your agenda, you're going to talk about fire and EMS grant processes. I envision that, although as you know, it's an ARPA funded venture today, I envision that or some version of that down the road will be an ongoing expense. And that'll be a priority decision that this committee and ultimately the county board have to make. Because there will be positions that are still outstanding, as was explained by the sheriff a moment ago in the detective bureau and so forth. So just wanted to point those things out to you. I think they're important things for you to think about and ruminate on in the next several months. In terms of the radio grant process, I'm here today because of 2 things. One, my understanding was at the last meeting, there was a little bit of postponement to do some investigation or maybe familiarize a little bit with the approval for the Village Jackson Police Department application. And 2, the grant as proposed, I think last month, illustrated or an 80-20 split. And I'm going to take personal responsibility for that. The program was intended from the start. I communicated it publicly, and I believe others have as well, that it was going to be 100% grant coverage of the radios themselves. So similar to our radio system, you'll remember when we borrowed the money, there was a big debate about what it was going to cover exactly. We said we were going to cover the cost of radios for municipalities. That's different than we've ever done it. But we're going to cover 100% of that radio cost, portables, consoles, and so forth. That should be the case here as well. And we've said it publicly. I know it's come up in county board meetings. For us to change it now to 80-20, I think, is a mistake. And I'm asking you, not to do that. Certainly you have the authority to do that, I suppose, if you wish. But I think it would be going back on what we said, and we certainly don't want to be in that position. So I'll take personal responsibility for it, for that error, or that mistake, and ask you to correct it at this time. I'd also ask you, when you get these, certainly this is up to you, Mr. Chairman, but I'd ask you to make this a consent agenda item. By the time it gets to you, these should be specifically for the radios themselves, just like we would purchase them from the supplier. And that's what we're granting. Any add-ons or additions or connections or those types of things, this could go on and on and on. But I think to make it administratively simple, both for our staff to administer and for applicants to apply for, I think if we say, we'll pay for the radio itself, and then it comes to you and it's really perfunctory. It makes sure that they're not taking advantage, certainly, or there's some error, or staff can illuminate to you some problem. But I don't want these things to get hung up. As you know, municipalities are struggling for money to begin with. In many cases, if you look at this list, they're adding new staff, which we want. So let's not let something like this be a hurdle, and certainly want to maintain our integrity by living up to that 100% reimbursement cost. So I'm happy to take any questions if you have them, but I'd ask you to approve all 4 of the radio application or radio grant applications as listed for the radios themselves.
Okay, so I'm looking at the packet here, and I thought we were gonna have an item to switch the program itself from 80% funded to 100% funded. But I don't see that. I just see a generic update here. Unless there's an attachment I didn't open.
There's one in there that talks about 100%.
Okay, is that the one Washington County Municipal Public Safety Radio Grant Program, right?
There it talks about 100%.
Okay. So I think we just need a motion then to change it from 80 to
Yep.
100, right?
Right.
All right, would somebody make that motion? Okay, so Supervisor Tolman, I saw Supervisor Conrad's hand go up first. Sorry. So, my thoughts, this is a commitment that was made, so we should honor it. I'm glad the mistake was pointed out to us so we can fix it. Other questions or comments?
Agree, yeah, sorry for any distress recalls from municipalities.
I just have one question. When the municipalities, we reimburse them, correct?
Well, that is how it's working in this case.
I mean, that's, yeah, okay.
Yep, that's how it's working in this case.
So-
I think moving forward, I don't know exactly if that is. Reimbursement. Head shake. So chiefs are shaking their heads, yes, so I guess there's your indication.
Do all the municipalities buy from the same supplier?
Again, I would have to. That way, which is also, we work with John, right?
Okay, so when one municipality, and then they purchase it and they want reimbursement. I'm just thinking if they add extras on, is there somebody that oversees, like, well, this municipality paid $1,000 and you're at 1,200, did they add extras on?
I don't
Is
know.
there somebody that oversees this that would question it?
I believe the intent was that we funded the base radio and any add-ons they would fund. But I would look to Aaron or the sheriff to speak to that.
Yeah, so if you look in the radio grant program, there's a chart called radio standard models and grant value. So there's different types of radios, and the sheriff's department has put together standard packages, right? So inclusive of just industry best practices, things like that. And so those are not inclusive of some of the add-ons that we're talking about, such as like like an extended warranty, for example. So really, the intent would be to identify which type of radio or radios are being purchased, and then simply use that grant award value, and that's the amount that gets sent over, rather than having to go line by line on some of these invoices. In the packet, some of those invoices are in there. You can see how complex they are, right? So
Yeah.
really, the intent would be just to figure out what type of radio it is and reimburse that amount.
Okay. Other questions about the motion to switch it from 80-20 to 100%?
Yeah, and on this page 7 too, that Aaron was just referring to, that 100% is right there.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so that motion carries. The county executive brought up the idea of switching these grant awards to the consent agenda. I don't know what your guys' opinions are. My thought is that that's maybe something down the road, and let's see a few months of these first, and then we can look at that. So I don't know what thoughts you guys have.
are we expecting more really kind of month after month? And we really should maybe put it on for next month right away to begin it as a consent agenda item?
I mean, I would expect, since the program is new, I would expect sort of a surge in applications to start off with at least.
Yeah, and our committee won't have an April meeting likely with the board changeover, so likely the next meeting will be May. So there'll probably be some built up. But I don't know what your guys' opinion is on dealing with these individually for a bit, and once we're comfortable, then making them a consent agenda item. We're switching that right away to consent agenda.
I would take their advice and switch it
Just
to
go
a
ahead.
consent agenda item, especially to, if, you know, we're expecting a potential surge in the beginning.
I would agree with that.
Okay, all right, then we can do that. We can make them a consent agenda item. We can always pull something out of the consent agenda if we have
Yeah.
questions on it too. So, yeah. All right, sounds good. Is there anything else we need to do on the radio project?
Not on the program itself. I would just ask
Okay.
that we start considering the requests.
Yeah, and I think the requests all seem pretty reasonable. Is there an interest on the committee to bundle and approve all 4 of the requests together?
Yeah. Not today. You can't today because they're all separate items on the agenda.
I think in the past, we've done that when they've been separately.
County attorney has, I mean,
Instead, they
you've done
gotta
that
be
before when you
separate.
have something, they're separate. Like when you have a resolution, they're all separate items.
All right. All right, so let's go first then to the Village of Jackson. And I'm gonna ask for a motion to approve this, and just to be clear, let's put the word 100% in there on all 4 of these. So is somebody willing to make that motion to approve? Supervisor Milliken? Second, Supervisor Toma, okay. Questions or comments on the Jackson request? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Let's then go on to the request for the City of West Bend. I need a motion to approve that one at 100%. Supervisor Conrad, Supervisor Milliken. Any questions or comments on that one? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Let's go on then to the request for the Village of Germantown. Need a motion for that one? Supervisor Conrad, second Supervisor Toma. Questions or comments on that one? Okay, seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. And then last one is City of Hartford. I need a motion to approve that one at 100%. Supervisor Toma, Supervisor Milliken. Questions or comments on that one? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Any opposed? Okay, that one carries. So four motions down super quick. All right, with that, let's go and talk about the fire and EMS grant. I think, Aaron, are you gonna speak to that?
Yes, I am. Thank you. In your packet, is just a general draft of the, fire and EMS grant. This draft has been circulated in front of a number of audiences and it's here for you, today. I'm just looking to describe the program and maybe collect some feedback on this. The document here says $1 million one-time funding in 2024. That's accurate for 2024. It's the $2 million has been allocated to the program, so $1 million in each year. In terms of the award amount, down at the bottom, there's a formula that's described, and that formula is consistent with what we've done in a number of areas and what we plan to do in a number of areas, including the radio operating grant program that will come later, either this year or early next year. But basically that formula is a 4-part formula. It's also based on what we know other places do in terms of funding formulas like this. So 25% of the dollars are allocated as a percentage of total population, 25% as a percentage of total equalized value. There's 25% of the dollars are divided into an equal share. And then the remaining 25% are allocated based on fire and EMS calls, essentially calls for service records. So you'll see how the dollars kind of shake out over there. Those are estimated dollars at this point. Just continuing to kind of fine tune the data and the information there, but really that's kind of how the information shakes out at this point. The city of West Bend isn't included in the allocation simply because we've been working with them on the lead lateral piece. And so we've excluded that piece out of this program for now. There's some eligible use components here where we've really tried to kind of keep this almost, fairly flexible in terms of what they can use the dollars for. We recognize they've already adopted budgets and things like that. So we didn't want to put too many stringent requirements in there that would make it difficult to utilize these dollars. So similar to other programs, we'll be communicating an award letter to each of those municipalities, along with just a model resolution for them to approve. The elected bodies of those municipalities would approve that model resolution, send that back to us, and once we receive it, we will cut the checks. That's basically it in terms of the description of the program. I'm happy to answer any questions or take any feedback that you have.
Mr. Chair, can a municipality, can they share their portion with a different municipality?
Once we give them the money, I think they're free to do that. So if you remember, this was originally funded with ARPA, and we instead funded it with the general fund, and we're backfilling the general fund that was at the county board last month. So in terms of our strings that are attached to the money, there's not that many any longer. So I would assume they're free to do so. So we're not going to certainly stand in the way.
Is there something you're envisioning that municipalities might do, like share a service, maybe combine volunteer fire departments, or are you just kind of asking just in case?
Well, when we contract with a different municipality, can we use that to pay for their service?
But
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I think you'll see in this program, we're trying to be as flexible as possible and allow the municipalities to, do whatever it is they need to do. In some cases, they may need to pay another municipality. For example, there's probably some that if they need paramedic service, City of West Bend is the only one who can do it. So I could envision something like that. But the beauty of having this as a 2-year pilot is we're going to be able to see how do those dollars get used. Are some taking the dollars and using it for something else entirely? That's possible too, but we've had this conversation with the chief elected officials just this last month about the importance of fidelity and in utilizing these dollars. I think 2024 is hard because they, the budget passed 6 months ago already, 4 months ago. But moving forward, the intent certainly is to help leverage down the cost, but as they say, money's fungible, right?
Thank you.
And just on that note too, that's kind of what I envisioned. Most of my district is the town of Polk, and they contract their services. And they just, reviewed the budget too, and a significant portion is, contracting out for fire EMS.
okay, other questions or comments? Okay, so I think we're good on this item then.
Thank you.
Yep. So next item we have is going to be the resolution for the general fund transfer related to the town of West Bend here. So the official name is General Fund Transfer and Authorization for the creation of one deputy position to be shared between the town of West Bend and the sheriff's office. So I'll need a motion to approve that. Supervisor Toma, I think, was first, and Supervisor Conrad was second. So, all right, Chair.
Thank you. So under the current model in Washington County, the sheriff provides primary law enforcement services to most of the townships. We have a liaison deputy that's assigned pretty much to each township if they have specific requests or specific needs. Most of the townships actually have enacted ordinances that allow a sheriff to enforce their local ordinances. But sometimes towns want more, and we try to do everything we can for townships. If they have, speeding requests or stuff, we try to focus our resources in those areas. But on occasion, the towns seek even more, and that's the case with the town of West Bend. Their equalized value is off the charts for a township in this county. And we were approached by, when I say we, the county executive and I were approached by the town chairman for the town of West Bend, and worrying about the possibility of contracting for services to have additional patrol. So the towns have kind of several different options in doing this. They can start their own police department. They can contract with a different municipality, a full-time police department elsewhere in the county, and have that municipal police department work on the sole authority of the town, have an arrest authority in the town, or they can contract with the sheriff who already has the ability to enforce the laws there, the liability insurance and all that's already in place. So the economies of scale, and it makes it a little bit more sense to have the sheriff's office do it. It's done in several different ways. So the town requested what was the feasibility of having a deputy assigned to the town. They have a part-time police chief right now that is actually one of our full-time deputies. But they don't use a marked squad car. He enforces some local ordinances, high grass and abandoned vehicles, those types of things. But we did a little bit of analysis on the calls for service in the town over the past 5 years. they've been pretty flat for the past 2 years at about 3,300 calls for service. But since 2019, there's been about a 22.33% increase in calls. About an increase of 700, 800 calls for service since 2019. So the work is, it's certainly there. And the share, from my perspective, I'm more than willing to do that. And to be very honest, I'd much rather have them contract services than start their own police department, only because invariably what happens is things get missed when we have a part-time police department working sometime and not other times. And just in service to the community, I think it's better to have more consistent law enforcement services. So the county executive and I were willing to do that. The cost of it, that's, I guess, I'm going to pass it off to Aaron to explain exactly what that model looks like. And it's, I think it's more of a shared tax revenue type of model, 50-50 split. But if you don't mind, I'd like to turn that portion over to you.
Sure, thanks, Sharon. Yeah, I think simply put, it is truly a 50-50 split with the town. In the cost model, the costs that the town will be paying 50% of, that will include obviously the deputies' salary and benefits, wages and benefits. There's also some equipment costs and the cost of a squad car, the provision of a squad car as well. So, and all of the equipment that gets attached to that squad car. So we've set up a cost model to calculate that on an annual basis, and that's the 50% share that the town would pay.
Okay. Questions or comments on this proposal?
Yeah, just a comment. I know this has been a concern of the town of West Bend for some time, and yeah, they were wondering their options. I appreciate you all working with them, and I think this is a better too for our community in the town of West Bend for their purpose, for their why, instead of them like potentially trying to create their own position. So I support this. Thank you.
I don't want to speak for the town chairman, but I believe the game plan was to eliminate the part-time police chief. Just have if this works, just to hand all law enforcement services over to the contract deputy.
Other questions, comments? All right, all those in favor?
Hold on, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to make clear to everybody, because it's something that we discussed. The funding for this, if you notice, is for just the first 2 years, year and a half, I guess, however you want to look at it, which means at the end of our biennium, theoretically, it could end. If the town, for some reason, says we're not going to do it anymore, or that could create a position or a situation where you need to increase taxes to cover the loss of town revenue, so to speak. I don't believe that'll happen. We have other alternatives, but I just didn't want you to somewhere down the road go, wait a minute, you approved this thinking X, and then you switched us into raising taxes.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, it's possible that could happen. It's also possible we could backfill a vacant position at that time. But
Yeah.
just so you're looking down the road and not
Yeah.
feeling like, wait a second here.
Yep. All right, thanks for noting that.
And the town seems committed to me to carry this forward, but it could, it could happen.
I have a question. We're not adding an additional officer.
Yes, that would be.
We are adding an additional officer.
That's why I wanted to make it
Yeah.
clear.
Okay. That's, so in this, does the county oversee that at night? Is this off with the way they do it now? Are they have a part-time officer? Does that officer, who patrols it during the day?
So the sheriff's office right now does all the patrolling there. Their part-time police chief really, it's not a marked squad. It's our deputy that works part-time, and all he really does is he doesn't do any traffic. It's just the abandoned vehicle, the noxious weed, the local ordinance enforcement. So if you wouldn't even know, I think he has a white Explorer that they use, it's not. So the sheriff's office currently does all the patrolling there in reality, with the exception of the lakes, that's kind of a different story. But during the day and at night, the sheriff's office is the primary law enforcement services for Westman.
I'll use Newburgh, for instance, because they have their own. If they were to approach us, we could do the same thing for them.
Yes, it's very similar to Richfield. Richfield has 2 contract deputies that they pay for. When the contract deputies are not working, the sheriff's office general patrol backfills and takes calls for services on patrols in that area. Oh, sure, yeah. It is a little different with the village of Richfield statutorily has to provide police services, whether it's their own police department or contracting, because they are a village. Once they became a village, they had to do that. The townships are not required statutorily to do any of that. It's really just a request that they wanted to increase the visibility and the proactive patrols, but they're not mandated statutorily to have their own police department or to contract services. So Sheriff, it's my responsibility to provide that to them.
Thank you.
All right, seeing no further questions or comments, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. And we will go on to discussion on the resolution to amend the capital improvement plan. So Aaron, you're gonna be taking us through this one, or is the sheriff?
I can certainly start.
Okay.
So I plugged in a PowerPoint just to give a kind of a visual representation of what we're talking about. What this really is kind of a cascade effect of 2 things, consolidating dispatch, the CRUs, the social workers and the deputies. Whenever we have a large project, and I would consider this, I mean, it's a couple $100,000. It's a large project to us. What we always try to do is to look at what our immediate needs are, what our future needs could be, and then making sure that what our plans for our immediate needs don't interfere with those future needs down the road. And what I can tell you is we kind of have a history of trying to do that. If you look at if you look at back here, that area beyond that counter area is our old dispatch center. That's what before we moved in 2010, we went through a building renovation where we moved the dispatch from there to our new area. The new area, as you know, we built with a 20-year expansion plan in place in the event that we would be asked by municipalities to do dispatching. That actually is coming to fruition right now. But what we did is that area that you're looking at right now, and it's part of the it's part of our front office right now. It's kind of north area of the office. But that area was intentionally left completely vacant. We didn't do anything with it because we didn't know what the needs were going to be. If you were to ask me 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I would have thought we needed that for file storage. So we were thinking that this would be like a file track system and all of our papers would be back there. As it turns out, we are going all paperless. So we don't have that need anymore. So I'm glad we didn't move in that direction. So right now, as it stands, it's completely vacant. This area right here is our dispatch, the administrative area of our dispatch center. So if you're looking at the picture to your back would be where the bullpens are for the dispatchers. And there are 3 office areas running down this hallway. The first one is on the top here. That's the current sergeant's area. That's the area of the windows that you see. So we have 2 sergeants that are currently stationed in that area. The middle area, and I apologize for the clutter, but it's kind of a multi-purpose room. It's a second door down. That is an area that, we call it a conference room. It's not really a conference room, but we need privacy to talk to employees. It's better than the fishbowl of the windows. But we also use that as a training area. So that has both our critical software where we evaluate new candidates. It has a radio console in there that new employees are train them on. So although it's clustered, it's a very valuable piece of real estate in the dispatch center. The next office, one furthest down the hallway on the left as you're looking at it, is the bottom one here. Again, very cluttered, but that's our radio administrator office. That's our contracted position. The county doesn't have our own full-time radio administrator anymore. We contract services through GenCom to provide that. That's his office. Part of the long-range consolidation with, and specifically now that we're working with Germantown, is we're going to be adding a third shift supervisor. So we're going to need additional space for one additional supervisor back there. What we're proposing, although you would think it make a lot of sense to have the radio administrator right in the dispatch center, much of his duties does not directly relate to dispatching. It's dealing with municipalities or mobile radios in the squad cars or pagers that have to be reprogrammed. So it's not directly related to the radio room, but they need to be close. But I think this particular office, or we could flip-flop them, one of these offices, I think, is going to have to become a sergeant's office at some point. If you go through this door, if you're not familiar with it, that leads to this next hallway. So down the end of this hall is that door that we're just looking at. And directly kind of adjacent to that is our current crisis response unit office. There's 3 workstations in here right now. It used to be our DARE office, and now our crisis response team is in there. And as I mentioned to you, we currently have 4 crisis response teams, which equates to 8 individuals. Now, granted, most of their time should be spent out on the road, and I acknowledge that. But there are days, specifically on Wednesdays, the way the schedules work, all 8 of them are actually working during not the same time frame exactly, but the same day, where they have team meetings, training, those types of things. This office space is a little tight for 8 individuals, and we're making it work, but it is a little tight. What I envision is to have this office area actually become the radio administrator's office, which is very, very close to our dispatch center, but not yet foot traffic of the deputies coming in there and talking about their radios and portable problems. But yet it's very, very close to our dispatch center if there's an issue that the radio administrator needs to address. So then the question is, okay, now if you're evicting crisis response, where do they go? So this is another view of our front office area. I'll go back here, but this door right here, we'll talk about that door in a little bit, but that door directly across from it is the medical examiner's office. And there's a secure hallway that you can get into that hallway, but not into the main portion of our building. So it allows public access through a secure door that the front office can buzz people in, but it doesn't allow people to come fully into the sheriff's office. So this is kind of the proposed area where we're thinking would be a good spot for the crisis response team. As I said, it's completely vacant now. The medical examiner did have some supplies back here in this corner. That's all vacant right now. The other part of this is the current open records area. Right now, we have 2 open records positions. They both deal with customer service routinely, so they need to be close to the front office area. But they also need a certain level of privacy because they are constantly listening to phone dispatch 911 calls, body cam videos, and they need to hear what's going on. So, they can be a bit noisy when they're doing all of that stuff. We had this soft office area that we built. Didn't quite work out as well as we had thought for noise reduction. You can see it doesn't go quite up to the ceiling here. The good part about this, I'll talk about a little bit, but these panels here, thanks to facilities, when we purchased this, it was purchased kind of as a modular unit with a color scheme that the county uses. So all of these panels here, we're proposing will be actually become part of the CRU's new office cubicles. They can be reused, so nothing here would go to waste. I think maybe the doors would be, shouldn't even say, I'm not sure if the door would be utilized. But this is the floor plan that we're proposing as part of this. And this is actually, we're just kind of providing this as input to you. Chris, unfortunately, you're going to have to hear this later on today at executive tonight. It's actually a CIP adjustment, but I thought it was, in fairness, we should at least let you guys know what we're thinking. So these two offices here, those are just in the future, possibly thinking if we had to expand it all. Part of the master plan down the road was they're thinking IT is going to be needing more and more room. If we ever had to build additional office space, that's what we propose, but this is not part of the quote at all, the shaded out areas. But this door, this is that door that I was talking about right down here. This area right here, it's labeled as a waiting room, but I would consider this a soft interview room. Right now, the CRU teams don't have the capabilities to meet with the public inside our building. You can't bring them all the way back to our office area. It's way too secure an area. But this would serve as a very, very ideal place where our CRU members would be able to personally meet with clients, because it's literally right off of our front office. These are secure doors here, right here, that they have to get buzzed in. So they could meet with them. These would all be card reader doors, so they would not have access into the main office area of the building. So it really would work really well for that. The other thing, I spoke with our medical examiner's office. As I mentioned, the medical examiner's office, their door is literally right across from that door. And they don't have a space where they can meet with families to talk about some of the issues that come up with dealing with the death of a family member. And I'd offer, do you see any value to being able to utilize that kind of soft? This looks more like office furniture. I'm envisioning this more of a more comfy, maybe a sofa or something in there. That thought there would be some value to be able to actually have a private place where the medical examiner could meet with the family as well. So that would be an added benefit. This area right here it's a conference room. Although these are not conference tables, they are not one large conference table. There are 4 individual narrow, or actually 8 narrow tables. It could be configured as a classroom. It could be configured as a conference area. And it could be if you're not familiar, the sheriff has his own conference room, and we're constantly having scheduling conflicts with all the hiring that we're doing. That's where we do all of our hiring. It'd be very nice to have another office, another conference space where those interviews could be done. And again, it's be a secure area. It could be a classroom for additional training. It could be a press conference room that's right off of our lobby. So it's kind of a multi-purpose room for that. When I said we plan for the future, it looks long and narrow. So one of the things we thought of way down the road, if there ever needed to be a supervisor for the CRU, whether it's a human service supervisor or sheriff's office employee, this area here could be cordoned off as another separate office, making the conference room a little narrower. Then a door could be added here. So we're thinking of the future. We could utilize this area differently if we needed to. This would be the new CRU area. And as you said there, as I mentioned, there's 8 different workstations here. I don't necessarily think that each one has to have their own separate workstation. They could double up, so we could narrow this down a little bit, but my thoughts are that if this ever expanded into more of a multi-jurisdictional type of, like our drug unit where we have Germantown has a member there, West Bend has a member there. If we ever did that, it has a capability to expand within the footprint that's currently there. The office areas here that I mentioned, these would be hard offices with drywall up to the regular offices. Currently, our records, one of the records persons is down in the hallway in our operations area, just because that's where the office was, vacant office we had. It's closer to the dispatch center. It's, as I said, it's a customer service position. So it works, we make it work, but it's not ideal. And she's not even in our front office area when she is part of our administrative team. So what we'd like to be able to do is to move her next to the other open records position. The other thing that would do is that office that would become vacant down near the dispatch center. If we ever had to have consolidated dispatch expand beyond what it is, we might need a lieutenant, and that would be a very good spot for the lieutenant's office, right close to the dispatch center. So like I said, we try to look at the long range plans when we do this types of thing. What I wanted to do for the executive committee is come up with some different cost areas, things that we could do differently and to decrease the cost of the project. And there are certain things we could do. I think some will have some repercussions later on, but one of the things that I would propose that would have very little impact if we needed to knock down some costs is not purchase the office furniture for this conference room. It's like $8,000 for some tables and chairs. Could we get by without that? We could. That would probably have the least amount of impact. The other thing we could do is not purchase the 3 cubicles that you see here, those will be reused from the current crisis team office. We move those in there, and then use those panels from the soft office here to incorporate into those additional cubicles. Could we get by without purchasing the 5 additional cubicles? We could try to use, get some used office furniture. I don't object to that. It's workable. The disadvantage, and maybe facilities speak a little bit to that, is that we're proposing using those panels from the soft office area. And I don't know how often the colors change and the designs change. So my fear is that if you don't do it, all those cubicles right now, and we wait 5 years, we might not be able to get the stuff to make it work. That's a disadvantage. The other thing that we pointed out is that we wouldn't have to have this second office here. We could, that would probably eliminate maybe 19,000 out of the proposed cost. The disadvantage is then, we don't have that long-term planning for getting that other office vacant that I think we're going to need eventually. Like I said, we could make it work. So I do have a couple of options that I want to provide them with if they're uncomfortable with the cost. But yeah, that's kind of the overview of it. It addresses our immediate needs. It addresses some of our future planning that I think will be here down the road as well. And just so you're aware, so the funding that we're proposing is using excess CIP that was other projects that were under budget. And I forgot, I think Scott can probably address some of them were asphalt things that came in under budget, HVAC projects that came under budget. So we'll just be reallocating some of the current CIP and amending the plan.
All right, questions or comments?
No, thank you for all your details.
I just thought it helped to actually see what we're proposing.
But yeah, always very humbled and privileged in these meetings. So yeah, thank you. And Aaron's excellent work and details in here too is greatly appreciated. But I mean, you're, speaking with honesty there and looking big, bigger picture. I trust your decisions.
I think, when I think about the crisis response teams, they're becoming a very important element to our community. I think we want to give them workspace that's going to provide for their needs now and in the future as this program grows if it needs to. So I support this.
Yeah, and regarding if you want all the, those separate works areas, I personally like that. I mean, that's up to you and your team. What you think is best.
I just like the location of this being right off of our front lobby and
Mhm.
be able to meet with clients now, which we just don't have that capability.
Yes, I like that. I think that's important. Yeah, I've been there.
All right, I think for our committee, this is just a discussion item. So if there are no further questions, I think we're set on this. And then I think the last thing we have on our agenda is an update on the progress of dispatch.
Yeah, and I'm gonna bring up Captain Stacer to talk to you about that.
Okay.
Morning. So just want to kind of go over some numbers quick before I zoom in Hartford and do a ton of updates. So prior to all this discussion, we had our staff and county staff was 14 and a half dispatchers and 2 sergeants. With the Hartford consolidation, we looked at the numbers. We thought 3 would be sufficient. And for Germantown, they're busier, their fire department's busier. That number went to 6. And then we also figured on having that 3rd shift supervisor. So true numbers are 16 and a half for us with the 2 supervisors. And once we're full consolidation between these 2 departments, we'd be looking at numbers of 26 and a half positions. I'm going to the Hartford consolidation. So that full consolidation occurred February 19th. Went off pretty much relatively without a hitch. Chief McFarland put a presser out to the folks at Hartford, and honestly,
Very complimentary.
yeah, honestly, I think it's really been pretty seamless. Couple things in the background that we continue to refine, but as a whole, I think it pretty much went off seamless. I've noticed a better collaboration between deputies and Hartford officers. I don't know if it's because they can now see each other on our CAD system, or if it's, they're asking questions, but I just see a collaboration that didn't exist prior, which is refreshing and cool because that's positive for law enforcement as a whole. So that's done very good. When it comes to the staff, and we talked about those 3 positions needed for the Hartford consolidation. The first of those 3 positions was hired in October of last year, and she's currently on her own. So I think it's about a 15-week, 16-week training program. It varies. It might go longer if need be. It can go a little less if need be, but she's on her own. The second position for Hartford was hired this January, and that gentleman is currently in training. He's expected to be done in June. And the third was hired last week. She came to us. She's a prior dispatcher. She's got dispatch experience. Came to us from a neighboring department on Jefferson County. She's a Village of Slinger resident. We really feel good about it. It's a good pickup. Given her previous dispatch experience, we think that that's going to accelerate that process. And if everything goes right, we look at her being done sometime in May. The gaps, because we got Hartford and we don't have the dispatchers in place yet, those gaps are currently being filled by overtime. So there is some taxing going on of our people that are having to work 12s. Yeah. And so we're trying to remedy it as quickly as possible, but they are in fact being filled by overtime. Now the bad part. So since February, we lost 2 dispatchers. We lost one through retirement, and we lost one last week through resignation. And so, given the small group of people, given the lengthy training time, that hurts. That sets us back. It's going to set everything back. We continue, pushing on the gas to keep things moving, but it is just this. It's just the environment we're in. It's not an easy job. And I don't think the gal left because she didn't like it. It's a tough job.
So those vacancies are now going to have to be filled by overtime. County GIS and Sheriff's Department personnel continue to work with Hartford Fire on getting their fire district in our maps from Dodge County. And my last update is that those maps, we got them. I think they had to work with Dodge County to get those maps, but we got them. We went through them, did verifications, and everything looks good. And now it's just we need to dump it in the Pro Phoenix. But that's going to take some assistance on their behalf and some scheduling. And so hopefully, knock on wood, that will go pretty quick and that will be off to the races as well. I think I mentioned this before, but Hartford is also joining the county's multi-juris Pro Phoenix records management system. This is a completely new system for them. And if I remember how it was for us when we went to it, it was like walking on broken glass with bare feet at first. But it gets better, and I think they're having some of those same pains, but I think they're going to enjoy it once they get going on it. It just takes practice and work. Just quickly touch on our dispatch furniture. Some of you may have been down there, but the furniture is up. That went pretty quick. The radio consoles have been installed, but on the radio end, we're still waiting for some cabling. So there still are some supply chain issues going on. The phone stations. They're back ordered, but we did take that one phone from position 5, that supervisor position that we talked about earlier, and our spare, and we put that out on the floor, and we'll just have to backfill those 2 other positions. Once those phones come in, I do not have an estimate of when that hardware or software is going to come in, so we're still waiting for that as well. One of the computers is installed, and our IT guy is working, and he's got time to get the other one installed. Long story short, I'm hoping to have those consoles, those 2 of the consoles up and running, fully functional by early to mid-April. Questions on Hartford consolidation? I'll jump into where we're at with Germantown. So we continue to work, and I think we're off to the races with Germantown. We've had several meetings with their chief and command staff. That plan is going to require 6 new dispatchers and 1 supervisor. Several months back, we prepared a compensation package, worked with the county executive's office, come up with a compensation package for any existing Germantown dispatchers who may be interested in coming up here. We presented that to them. 5 of their current 6 expressed some level of interest, and those candidates are currently being backgrounded by our background investigator. So that's where that sits. Honestly, I don't believe we're going to get all 5 of them. I think there's going to be other positions down there that some of them may opt to take. So we'll see how that all pans out. But obviously, the dispatchers that we get down there is an advantage to us. They know the Pro Phoenix system. You're talking about shortened training time to get them acquainted with the county systems, and it would be a benefit for all. Under our tentative phased-in plan, like we did with Hartford, with Germantown, and this is a document in motion because we didn't think we'd have these necessarily 2 vacancies as early as we did. But I guess tentatively right now we're looking at taking on their 3rd shift in late fall of this year. 2nd shift in February, March, or something like that, and then 3rd shift in 2nd quarter of 25. I'm thinking maybe July-ish. Again, these dates are tentative. And there's a lot of wheels in motion that could speed up that process, that could delay that process. Another, through collaboration, hard work, kind of out of the box thinking, we thought, okay, we can only train 2 at a time. We approached Germantown with the idea of, well, would you guys be open to training someone? So you'd be training our employee to try to pick up this pace with training. They've graciously agreed to do that. In that position, that person was hired by us, went through the background. Germantown had an opportunity to, view all the background material, and that person starts next week in Germantown. So that's good. And we've also got another position that is hired as well. Came to us, he was a CSO with the city of West Bend, and looking forward to him, but we're just waiting to get him in. So we have an opening in our training. It's looking like it's going to be in May. He'll start, and we'll keep training. So we have people in the pipeline. The training is the ability to only train 2 people is our limiting factor. kind of a side project that we have going on with Germantown is they currently use Phoenix, but they are coming on to the county's multi-juris platform. I'm not gonna say that process is without hiccups. It's mostly a conversion of data and things like that. Frustrating at times. I know Germantown's putting in a lot of man hours on their side, trying to come up with these conversion tables. I think the hope was that we would go live April 1st, with them coming onto our multi-juris platform. Possible that may be, but I think that may be a little bit aggressive.
Yeah.
So, but we are working,
Yeah.
weekly calls and continue to work, but we're working with a third-party vendor. And, that is sometimes you're at their will as well. So that's kind of the, in the nutshell, Reader's Digest version of where we're at. It's fluid. We're kind of coming up with out-of-the-box thinking. But it is a slow, phased-in approach. It's just not something that you can just turn the switch and make it happen.
I'm thinking about the overtime. And, that puts a lot of stress on our dispatchers when they're working a lot of overtime. To try to reduce that, can we have a trainee work a station and their trainer work the station next to them? Or they have to both be working the one station during training?
They have to both work at the station. When they're in training, they're not even coming to that board dispatcher.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So I asked the Department of Military Affairs what the status of this was statewide with consolidations. I was on a WCA call 2 weeks ago. And it's kind of interesting. They don't have accurate information. They sent me a list of 27 that had standalones probably 2 years ago. It includes Hartford. It includes Cedarburg, which I think has now combined with Ozaukee County Dispatch. It includes Germantown, which is in the process. Looking at the list, most of these are very small departments like Greendale, Greenfield, Lake Geneva, Minocqua, Fort Atkinson. There's only a few really big departments. West Dallas might be a big one. Waukesha has their own, and Milwaukee has their own, obviously, because that's a whole different entity. But they gave me the impression that a lot of these small dispatch centers are consolidating within their counties, and it's happening so fast they can't even keep an accurate count. But it might be that by next year, the number of secondary dispatch sites is in the single digits.
I think the way the funding stream is set up from the state, I think that's where it's heading.
Yeah.
Clearly, it's kind of what drove things here, right? There were other factors, but that was certainly a big one.
Yeah.
On a side note, the Department of Military Affairs through these grants has been wonderful to work with.
Okay.
Really develop some positive relationships with those folks.
Yeah.
And so we've got, open communications. It's nice that when you call the state, someone picks up the phone right away and you can have an honest and have a good conversation, and they're knowledgeable. So they've really been a good asset, good partner.
Real good.
In this process. So.
Yep. Okay. Other questions and comments?
No, thank you. You did mention, the one that left. It's a tough job. Yeah, the moral distress, the mental aspect of the role. There's a lot of research and stuff out there on it. What do we have in place to help individuals with the psychological aspect of this role?
So the department has a peer support group that's fairly new, maybe within the last 18 months. We have a dispatcher assigned to that group, and we're actually soliciting it, to put another dispatcher on that group. There were 3 dispatchers that were interested in being a part of that group, and so that's kind of going on currently right now. It's being used. I mean, there's no doubt about it. They're using it. But some of the calls we deal with are traumatic, and if you've had something traumatically happen to you in the past, and it kind of revisits it over something that happens, and those are tough. And being a dispatcher, it's, working a road, you're out there, you're seeing it, and then having to come back and supervise it and talk to these folks, they don't get to see that closure like you do on the road, right? They're not out there, so you don't get the feedback, so it's a tough deal. take that call, you're involved as everybody else, but you have no idea how it really ended, other than if you're reading a short narrative or a report. Get this, kind of get that closure.
Yeah, or second guessing yourself, or reflecting on, you know, how you handled the situation and things. And when, if you do, like my background's critical care and running a code about, you know, some of these heart stops and stuff. And we do, you know, hot debriefs, cold debriefs, critical incidents, stress debriefing on those types of situations. So I'm just, yeah.
And we've always done the critical incident stress debriefing for the major cases. I mean, that's been a pillar that's been around for the last 20 years. It's volunteer, you don't make them go, but I think they've been pretty well attended. It's this peer support piece that's new. That, that there's obviously there's value in it because it's being used.
I'm glad we're doing that. But, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Other comments and questions?
I just have, when you had mentioned about the overtime that there were they doing the overtime before the 2 open spots?
Yes, I mean, not to as big as extent. We were still plugging the holes to be able to pull off the Hartford piece. We were plugging those holes with overtime here and there. Remember, this is a 24/7 deal. So, but yeah, this is going to be a little bit more stressful. We did work on moving some people, had some people graciously to adjust their work schedules to try to alleviate some of that. So our team's been great to work with in that. They're kind of faced with, do we make these moves voluntarily, or do we, work-life quality suffers? And so our group of dispatchers has been part of this process too, and they've been great, but it takes its toll when you're working long hours and, oftentimes at a premium. So.
All right. Other questions on consolidating dispatch?
Thank you.
Okay, I think we're all set, and I
Thank
believe,
you.
I believe that was the last agenda item. So with that, next meeting will probably be in May after the new board convenes, and we will stand adjourned.